Good morning, everyone. So we are a little over 2 months into COVID-19 pandemic here, and a lot of talk has been thrown around. Statistics, conspiracy theories, and a whole lot of finger pointing. We know that the coronavirus originated in China, and some time ago, as you might recall, President Trump even took some flack for referring to it as the Chinese virus. Much like the flu pandemic in 1918 and 1919 was referred to as the Spanish flu. It's human nature to want to place blame somewhere. We start this when we're kids, don't we? You break something, you blame it on your sibling, you blame it on the dog. But then we grow up, and then we get a little bit more sophisticated with our blame laying. We might blame things on our past, we might blame our DNA, we might blame circumstances out of our control. And maybe some of that might be valid, that's fine, I'll grant you, but when we look at blame from a historical perspective, it can have awful consequences. I'll give you a few examples. After Pearl Harbor, we sent a bunch of Japanese Americans into concentration camps. If you remember the days after September 11, you might recall that people who looked vaguely Muslim got beaten up or even murdered on the streets. Back in the 1830s, when cholera struck the United States, Irish immigrants got blamed. And maybe the worst example of this was in the mid-14th century when the Black Death hit Europe. And if you don't know much about the Black Death, it was kind of like the coronavirus on steroids. Upward of 60% of Europe's population died in that particular pandemic. And so who took the blame that time? It was Jewish minorities. And these Jewish people were accused of all things of poisoning wells. Yeah, there were massacres of Jewish people throughout Europe. And in Strasbourg, France, several hundred Jews were burned alive. Bad stuff. And it's easy to lay blame. It's easy to scapegoat. And now we've started doing the same thing to another group of people, Chinese people, or people who look East Asian. And I'll be honest with you, I've had my own share of anger at the Chinese, particularly the Chinese government for letting this whole thing get out of control, for not reporting it properly up front. And I've said I want them to pay for the havoc they've wreaked, for the deaths that they've allowed to happen. I mean, this whole thing is spread all across the world because of them. Yeah, I'm guilty too. But there's not much we can do about it at this point, is there? Finger pointing is not going to solve anything. Jesus said many years ago that when things get tough and we're angry at something, even if we're justifiably angry, we're supposed to act like he does. Be merciful, Jesus said in Luke 6, just as your Father in heaven is merciful. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Right now, it might be a little hard to forgive, especially if you've lost your job or if you've lost a loved one to this virus, but that's what we're called to do. We're called to be countercultural. We're called to go against the grain of our natural human emotions. In Romans 12, Paul fleshes out what this looks like. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what's right in the eyes of everyone. If it's possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, dear friends, but overcome evil with good. We've seen throughout history where finger-pointing and blaming and scapegoating leads. It leads to further harm, further misery, violence, further death. So, this time around, let's get it right. Let's be merciful. Let's live in harmony. Let's do good. Because that's what Jesus would do.